Hey everyone, we're being told how moderate and nuanced Joe Biden's new Title IX edict having to do with trans athletes participating in women's sports really is. That is complete nonsense. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is one of the Biden administration's worst executive actions, and that's saying a lot. Hey, welcome to the National Review Channel, your source for facts and rationality in the fight to save America. I'm Rich Lowry with your reality check. So a little background, little history. Title IX, of course, has come to be primarily associated with protecting and maintaining women's sports. It was passed and signed into law by Richard Nixon back in 1972 to protect equal access on the basis of sex. No one 50 years ago, by the way, thought sex was the same thing as gender identity or had anything to do with gender identity. So if for some reason you want to change Title IX to include gender identity, the way to do it is to ask Congress to amend the law. I'm old enough to remember Schoolhouse Rock. That is the way it's supposed to work under our constitutional system. But of course, the Biden administration has no use for such niceties. Instead, it's just been rewriting Title IX on the fly. Last year, it said magically, now Title IX includes sexual orientation and gender identity, and now it's handed down this edict that will create this whole new regulatory regime, extremely invasive to educational institutions across the country about how to handle trans athletes. It says there can be no sweeping ban against trans athletes participating in female sports. You just can't do it. But you can have more narrowly tailored restrictions. That's the supposed moderate part, but it is completely bogus. Schools and colleges are going to have to jump through multiple hoops to justify any restrictions. They'll have to consider them by sport, by grade level, by competitive level, whether they substantially advance an educational objective, whatever that means. And given that everyone knows where the Biden administration is coming from on this issue, given the complexity involved, the default is going to be towards allowing biological males to participate against females in sports, which of course runs counter to the entire purpose of Title IX. And this is before we get the enforcement regime that's going to tighten things up further, and before we get trans advocacy groups suing to stop any restrictions. So this thing is an affront to Congress, whose will is being ignored. It's an affront to federalism by trampling on the right of states to come up with their own policies in this regard. This thing is an affront to Congress, whose will is being ignored. It's an affront to federalism by trampling on the right of states to come up with their own policies in this regard. And it is an affront to girls and women who just want to compete against one another on a level, fair playing field. Hey, by the way, check out my video on why there is no such thing as the trans community, even though we hear about it all the time.